All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
Strikes 12, the haunting has begun. Creepy Canada, where the ghost stories never die. Beneath the maple leaves, strange secrets multiply. From haunted ships to phantom trains, from castles old and grand, you never know who's walking right beside you in this haunted land. Creepy Canada, hear the whispers in the night. The legends still are living in the pale moonlight. The lady in white keeps waiting where forgotten lovers cry. Old soldiers guard the battlegrounds where history never died. The Wendigo still roams the woods where silent snowflakes fall, and voices echo through old minds that answer no one's call. Black flies circle forgotten graves where no one dares to tread. Ancient echoes fill the mountain mist with voices of the dead. Strange lights dance across the lakes where no boat should ever be. And something waits in every forest just beyond the trees. Is it just imagination or footsteps down the hall? A cold breath on your shoulder when there's no one there at all. The truth is waiting somewhere between belief and fear, and every haunted heartbeat says they're closer than they appear. Creepy Canada, every province has a ghost, from the Atlantic waves to the wild Pacific coast. Mysteries fill the northern skies where reason disappears. A nation built on history and hundreds of haunted years. Creepy Canada, when the darkness starts to grow, if someone whispers your name tonight, don't turn around, you may never know. Canada sleeps, the spirits don't.
And welcome back to the X Zone, everyone. I am Rob McConnell, and for the next 2 hours, I'm your host and your guide as together we're going to cross the time-space continuum to this place that I call the X Zone. It's a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. It's a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. The X Zone comes to you Monday through Friday from 10 p.m. Eastern until midnight, right here on the CanCon Broadcast Network and your hometown radio, Classic 1220 CFAJ AM, and they stream us around the world on classic1220.ca. If you would like to send me an email, it's xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, and on all social media sites, X Zone Radio TV. Now, the song we came into this first hour of tonight's show is called Creepy Canada. It's by Ram, and for all of you who are waiting so patiently to get the next CD from Ram and all the beautiful music that they do for us, the website is www.rammusic.ca, and visit the site. Take a look around. There is a great video there that was done about the songs that are on this album. It's called In the X Zone with Ram. 15 great titles. And just go over there, and there's a few little things that you can read. And on the music store, when you click on that, it'll bring you to a separate website that we have. And there is actually a video that you can watch that has all the tracks on there. It's about a 30-second clip per song. So that's at www.rammusic.ca. Exonation, tonight we journey into a world where history refuses to be buried, where ancient mysteries, Victorian curiosities, and macabre stories of the past come vividly back to life. My guest this hour is Seika Groves, Bachelor of Science. She's an archaeologist, adventurer, historical researcher, and imaginative force behind Mrs. Mooney's Halfpenny's Dreadfuls. Now, inspired by sensational penny dreadfuls once devoured by Victorian readers, Seika uncovers strange discoveries, forgotten artifacts, dark chapters of history, and stories hidden beneath the sands of time. When things become especially grim, she assumes the persona of Mrs. Mooney, a most unusual Victorian lecturer with a passion for mummies, seances, occult mysteries, death rituals, paranormal London, and history's most macabre curiosities. Seika has appeared in television productions exploring everything from mummy unwrapping and unusual antiques to ghosts and the paranormal phenomenons. She also presents lectures, workshops, historical adventures, and her very own podcast, The Ghost Show. Her website is halfpennydreadfuls.com. Tonight, history, mystery, and the unexpected take center stage. Joining me now from Mrs. Mooney's Halfpenny Dreadfuls is Seika Groves. And Seika, welcome back to the X Zone. It has been way too long.
It has, and thank you again for having me back.
Oh, it's always great having you with us. You're a very interesting young lady.
I like that you said young. Thank you.
Oh. Well, listen, my first girlfriend was Wilma Flintstone before Fred, so you are young. Seika, what first sparked your fascination with archaeology, history, and the mysteries of the past?
Well, gosh, where do I start?
At the beginning.
Begin at the beginning. Well, I grew up really and quite literally inside the Royal Ontario Museum. My mother was a volunteer there, and so I spent my very formidable years from about the age of 2 until in my late 20s in that building. And I had always wanted to go into archaeology. It was just, I guess, part of the, sort of the attraction of the museum. But I didn't actually get into archaeology until I was in my 30s. I didn't go to school until I was in my 30s. So, but, it was just, I was always fascinated with that. And I grew up reading a lot of books and stories. And my family, myself, I'm a British citizen of the UK. My grandfather was from Scotland, and my grandmother and my mother all born in England. So I grew up with all these great stories, these, haunted castles and all these kinds of interesting folklores. And so it just kind of came about that I was lucky enough to get myself into university and get a degree.
I must say that the ROM in Toronto is one of the most beautiful museums I have ever been in. It is gorgeous.
It is a pretty spectacular museum. Yeah, so that being said, chapter of my life, I enjoyed it. I'm mostly retired now from field work. It's kind of, beyond me. I'm getting older. So being out there in the hot sun and crawling around is a young person's game, right? But when I started to think about retiring, which was in the early 2000s, I decided to take my love of all of the sort of dark and strange things and turn it into a, sort of a side game, I guess, if you like. I don't really want to call it a game, but it's a lot of fun. And I really liked speaking with people and teaching people and doing those things. So I developed Halfpenny Dreadfuls as kind of a sideshow, dark, morbid, macabre history. And a lot of my presentations and things are very theatrical because theater has always been sort of first and foremost in my life. But that's just where I've gone, and I think I've honed I've honed myself into, something rather unique, a unique person who has all of this information in my brain, and it's given me a lot of opportunities. I've been on television as an expert for many, many years, talking in both the archaeological field and the paranormal field. And that's kind of an interesting, tightrope to walk, because most archaeologists do not believe in the paranormal. They do not really follow that. And I have a Bachelor of Science. So I am able to sort of coordinate those things in my brain. Makes sense in my head, maybe not with everybody, but I was also born very intuitive and had the ability to feel, see, hear, and experience, those things that are out there, those, if you like, spirits, energy, entities, whatever people like to refer to them as.
Well, I must say that you have a very, very positive attitude. I love your energy. I'm super glad that you're with us tonight. And Seika, we have to take our first break, so please stand by. Sure. Exonation, if you'd like to check out Seika later on, not during the show. No. Patience is a virtue, my friends. Her website is halfpennydreadfuls.com, and she also has a great Facebook groups page at facebook.com/groups/Halfpenny Dreadfuls group. This is the X Zone. I am Rob McConnell, a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard, Monday through Friday from 10 p.m. until midnight, right here on the X Zone Broadcast Network and your hometown radio, Classic 1220 CFAJ AM, streaming us around the world at classic1220.ca. Seika Groves and I will be back on the other side of this short break, so whatever you do, don't go away.
From the rocks of Peggy's Cove to the forest dark and deep, old spirits walk the moonlit trails while the living try to sleep. The screaming tunnel calls your name on a cold Niagara night, and shadows move where no one stands beneath the northern light.
And welcome back, everyone. Seika Groves is our special guest of this hour. halfpennydreadfuls.com. And she has a group webpage at Facebook, facebook.com/groups/halfpennydreadfuls group. I always want to say dot something or other. Seika, I must ask you, in my opinion, paranormal investigators are historians. I mean, paranormal investigators, if they know what they're doing, realize that in order to establish what they're investigating or what the claims that they are to be investigating are, they have to know the history of the location. And I've had the pleasure of talking to many wonderful investigators over the years doing this show. But what is it that you think your role is as a paranormal investigator, a psychic, a member of the paranormal community, as well as a scientifically based, educated archaeologist with a Bachelor of Science degree?
Yeah, it's a conundrum, isn't it? What's really interesting for me is you're right that good paranormal investigators should know and be aware of the history.
Mm-hmm.
But here's a funny thing. For me, I don't want to know any of that when I show up at a site. I don't want to know the history. I don't want to know the stories. I don't want to know about the ghosts. I want to go in there knowing literally as little as possible. And for me, that's because I want to have access to the energy, to the spirits, to the space without any preconceived notions that might be somewhere in my subconscious.
So you go in
Right?
there with a blank slate.
Right. And for me, this works the best because as I say, I don't have to second guess myself. I don't have to go, wait, did I hear that somewhere? Did someone give me that name? Did somebody tell me? And I find for myself, I really do want to go in with no knowledge. Now, when I'm in there, if I'm really lucky, I will get, some sort of audio, somebody talking in my ear, somebody giving me information, somebody telling me their name, or maybe even psychically showing me what has happened or what happened to them, or there's just so much going on in an old home or an old building, or even just outside in the open space. Because frankly, there's more dead people than there are people living. And so if you happen to have access to that energy, then there's always something. There's always something. So for me, I go in blank. I gather as much information. I don't use equipment. My equipment is myself. So I don't use any kind of paranormal investigation equipment. For me, it distracts from my own ability. So I don't want to be focused on a machine or some sort of gadget that I have to pay attention to, right? I just want to pay attention to what's happening to me physically, what I can hear, what I can see, smell, sense, feel. And then when I get out of that location, I will start to do the historical research so that I can either verify what has happened to me, what I've heard, what I've seen, what I've smelled, or I, have no ability to do that whatsoever because maybe that historical information is not yet known.
As a trained scientist, do you find that your education as a trained scientist is a great asset to you as a paranormal investigator because you have the scientific mind that works with your paranormal gifts?
I find it's very helpful. I mean, I have a bachelor in science, and just to say, bachelor of science, I mean, there's many fields and areas that can encompass. Mine is strictly for my archaeological background. but it's also in not necessarily field work. Like I didn't do classical archaeology or, study artifacts and, very specific cultures. What I did do was I went into things like topography, weather, soil conditions, things that make up an archaeological site that would have been, part of day-to-day living. So why did a battle end the way it did? Because it was a very rainy day and the ground was soft and people couldn't fire their muskets and gunpowder was wet. And, there's just all
Certainly.
of these things. And so for me, that really, I do find helps me. I'm also very interested in physics and energy and those types of things. So I think that I can explain in a way that makes sense how we interact with energy or spirits or those types of paranormal things that take place through science as well, because everything around us is energy, and therefore everything carries its own energetic signature. And through those signatures we interact with other people. We meet a person and we're either attracted to them, their energy, or we're sort of, oh, whoa, not liking that. And that's something that is literally based on energetic connection. So I feel as a person who has that ability myself, I enjoy going on investigations with other people who are psychics or mediums or identify as intuitive, because we all are vibrating at different energetic levels. And so therefore we're going to have different interactions with the energy around us based on our own energetic connections. If that makes any sense. It is scientific, but it's also a quite easy concept to grasp.
So, if I can put it into a little package, you're not an Indiana Jones.
Well, I was,
But you,
but I'm
Indiana
not technical like Indiana Jones.
yes, but Indiana Jones actually went out to archaeological sites and actually did the stuff that we see on TV, with the little paintbrush and everything else. Where if
I did that.
But you said you didn't.
No, I did do it, but that is not my
Forte.
Right? I mean, it's still a part of what my job
Okay.
I was still doing that, but I'm not necessarily looking for the artifacts. What I'm looking at is the striations as we dig trenches, as we start to look at the earth and we start to pay attention to the artifacts and what level that they're found at, what kind of, levels of moisture, etc. But I'm still in the trench. I'm still doing the digging. I'm still working. So it's just that my job is not to focus on the artifacts per se, it's to focus on the effects that the conditions have on what we find.
Was there ever a time when you did an archaeological investigation where something from the paranormal popped up that you had no idea was going to be there?
Oh, like almost every single time.
Really?
Yeah. And I've had moments with colleagues where I've literally said we're digging a trench in the wrong place. And of course, that doesn't always go over well. I was not a senior PhD archaeologist.
Yeah.
But as people got to know who I was and how I worked, sometimes, depending on who I was working with, they would consider my suggestions. Other times, we would open trenches, we would do work, and we'd find nothing. And then, they decide somewhere along the way to move down the way a bit to where I had initially said. And then they would find things, and it was, it's yeah. It's not always ideal in that environment to try to, push push those beliefs on people who don't believe it.
But it sounds like it's such a rewarding job.
I mean, I really enjoyed it
Yeah.
for the years that I did it. And I really do feel that my abilities helped me get a larger picture sometimes of the locations and the sites that we were on. And I would include those things in my reports, but I would just not say where the information was coming from. I would usually say I feel or I believe
Hmm.
this to be, something that may contribute, but I didn't, flat out say, hey, I
Ah.
was told this by a spirit who showed up on site.
All right, we've got to get ready for our break at the bottom of the hour. But before we do that, I'd like to thank all the volunteers from all over Ontario and parts of the United States and other parts of Canada who converged into the Niagara area over the last couple of weeks to help the citizens in the state of emergency that we found ourselves in here in St. Catharines and the rest of Niagara because of the heavy rains that we all were witness to a couple of weeks ago. So to the off-duty policemen, to the off-duty paramedics, the off-duty firefighters, the veterans, the members of the military, the neighbors, thank you very much for your dedication to being part of the community and to putting a plan of action that saved and helped so many people in their time of need. So from everyone here at the X Zone to everyone out there who is still out there working and listening to us on your hometown radio, Classic 1220, CFAJ AM, thank you so much for being there, and may God bless you all. We'll be back after this short break. Whatever you do, don't go away.
Far beyond the edge of memory, where oceans guard forgotten dreams, rose a kingdom forged in wisdom, shining brighter than the stars could gleam. Crystal towers kiss the heavens, golden temples touch the sky, a civilization born in wonder, now a whisper asking why. Did they master earth and heaven? Did they hold the keys of time? Or did pride become the storm that washed away their grand design? Atlantis beneath the waves, sleeping in her sapphire grave, lost but never truly gone, calling through the ages on. Every tide still speaks her name, every soul still feels the flame. Somewhere deep beneath the sea, Atlantis waits for you and me.
Welcome back, everyone. Before we get back to our guest, we have two new shows starting here on the CanCom Broadcast Network. We have Mr. Destiny and Destiny Cards with Robert Lee Camp, and then we also have the Galactic Federation with Grandmaster Z. Both starting here on the CanCon Broadcast Network in the next 2 weeks. And if you'd like to get information on the entire broadcast schedule of the CanCom Broadcast Network, just go to cancombroadcastnetwork.ca. Now, Seika, I have to ask you, who or what is Miss Mooney's halfpenny dreadfuls?
Mrs. Mooney. She's my alter ego.
Ah.
So because I do so much work now, away from the archaeology,
Mm-hmm.
I went into sort of the Victorian macabre and bringing a lot of sort of the darker side of that era forward, things like seances, the occult, the New Age movement, medicines, all of the different things. I do a lot of talks, and I also have a mummy unwrapping presentation that I do, which is very realistic to the Victorian era. And so this character of Mrs. Mooney, she's sort of my Victorian alter ego. So she's an antiquarian who, traveled the world and, had her fingers in many different things in the 1895 era. And so I'm able to really bring forward a lot of what was going on then through that character to the public. So it's theatrical, it's fun, she's kind of over the top. She's a lot of me, but just in a Victorian-esque figure.
So could it also be that you channel Miss Moody?
I do feel she really is me. I'm not sure that, she's anything else but me. It's just that because of my real interest in that time period as well, she just is that part of me that if I was living in that time, that would be who I would have been.
I see. Is it possible that you are the reincarnated Mrs. Moody?
I don't know. I mean, I can't really speak to that because
is that because you're a scientist and you don't? No.
I just think that it's really just another part of who I am, and maybe if I want to really go down that science road, that one of my ancestors might have been that kind of person. And, we carry that signature forward in our DNA. And so maybe there is a little bit of somebody else in there, but who that might be, I don't know.
Well, the Victorian era was actually very deep into the paranormal. What is the strangest event that you have ever recreated or learned about that goes back to the Victorian that is both macabre and paranormal?
Well, like I say, I do have a Victorian mummy unwrapping, and that tends to be something that in that time period, people of wealth who could afford to travel to Egypt and or purchase, artifacts that had been stolen and removed from the country. But they would get these mummies and they would invite all their friends over to their home and they would have mummy unwrapping parties. And you would get very drunk and you would eat food and then you would unwrap a mummy at your dining room table or in your parlor for your friends and family. And so I do a presentation of this and it's very realistic. And it's very much controversial because people, believe that it's, a real mummy. And Bob is very much a real mummy to me. But at the same time, it's a really great opportunity for people to understand how absolutely crazy that was. But they didn't have social media or television or movies or, so these kinds of antics were completely acceptable. But part of the, I guess, idea behind this is that I have an attendee or an audience member always come up on stage and assist me. And then I it's very interactive with the audience. So it isn't just a show. I take questions, I answer them. There's no script involved. I just know what I'm talking about, and I base my evening on my audience. So it's whatever they want to know, whatever they want to learn. What do they want to know about Egypt and, mummification and these types of things? So it is very macabre. It's not for everyone. I generally don't allow children at it because it can get a little risque. But that's probably just in terms of doing something that way. But I also have stage productions that I've written. I have a full 2-act Victorian play that I've written that's kind of a murder mystery slash, but a really great element of that is there is an actual seance that takes place on stage. So it is a real seance that is happening in front of the eyes of the audience.
So you do these mummy unwrappings. Have you ever done a daddy unwrapping?
Well, the mummy could be a daddy.
So you use your scientific knowledge to do the mummy unwrapping. And what was for the listeners who may not know, what was the deep down reason for the mummification during the Egyptian times?
Well, it started as a natural occurrence because of the, again, topography, weather, and location, that when you buried people in the ground in Egypt, they just naturally dehydrated and mummified because of the conditions. And as, they got into a society that was, were people like pharaohs and, kings, if you like, people of wealth and power were managing society. These efforts to attain everlasting life went far beyond sort of the everyday burial ritual. And it became a point where mummification was used to make sure that the body was identifiable by the soul when it was moving into the afterlife. So therefore the soul could move back into the body, and that you in the afterlife were able to continue to live. And so this is something that went to very expensive and creative heights of scientific knowledge. And people don't realize that, mummification is a very complicated process that requires knowledge and science and understanding of the human body.
Weren't there special organs that were removed from the body?
There was, depending on the time period. I mean, there is some mummification where everything was left in the body. There's others where the brain and all of the internal organs were removed, except the heart. In some cases, all internal organs and the brain were removed. So we're just depending on the era, the time period, and who was sort of in charge of mummification at the time.
Would mummification pass for very early experimentation with embalming?
It is a very early concept of embalming. It's drying the body out.
Right.
So, but at the same time, applying oils and different herbs and spices, and actually a mummified body smells absolutely fabulous. I know you would think it would smell like rotting death, but it doesn't. It is so fragrant and perfumed and absolutely smells, to me, it smells divine. As weird as that sounds, it has such a lovely fragrance. But they tried to, again, make the body look as lifelike as possible. So do I think that it is? Yes, of course, it is embalming. I actually believe that some of the best mummification is better than modern day embalming.
Yes, well, with all the chemicals that goes into the human body after embalming, that is no doubt at all. You and I have to take our break here at the commercial break time, as Craig likes to tell me. He's got a little...
No worries.
Yeah. When we come back, I'd like to finish this conversation. It's very interesting, and I do thank you so much for joining us. It's always a great pleasure talking to you. So please stand by. And Exo Nation, if you'd like to find out more about our guest this hour, visit our website, www. Are you ready? You notice how I keep them guessing. Miss Mooney's halfpennydreadfuls.com. I'm Rob McConnell. This is the X Zone. Seika Groves and I return after this break as we wrap up this hour here in the X Zone from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada, on the CanCom Broadcast Network and your hometown radio, Classic 1220 CFAJ, who are just down the street from our studios here in St. Catharines, Ontario. Oh, wow. The strange, the weird, the bizarre. Sometimes I think this present state of our world is the weird, the strange, the bizarre, and things made a lot more sense way back when. Who knows, Exo Nation, who knows? More information, and if you'd like to listen to all the other shows we have here on the X Zone Broadcast Network and the CanCom Broadcast Network, visit www.xzbn.net. And Peter Borbley, if you're driving home from Niagara with your beautiful wife Joyce, I hope that you're both smiling. I'm Rob McConnell. Don't go away.
Golden temples touch the sky, a civilization born in wonder.
Where the mist rolls in from the river's bend, and the willow weeps for the long dead men. Cannon smoke and musket cries still echo under haunted skies. In the shadows by Queenston's hill, you can hear the marchers still. Drums of doom and bayonets gleam, awakening soldiers from their dream. They rise from the ground when the moon turns pale, whispering names on a cold night's gale. Through the streets of Niagara on the lake they ride, ghostly eyes burning from the other side. Hear their boots on the cobblestone floor. The dead of 1812 march once more.
And welcome back. If you're coming to Niagara and you're looking for things to do, which is, I must tell you, that's an understatement. There's more than enough to do here in Niagara. And you know what? We love our visitors. We love people who come here and enjoy our wineries, enjoy the many attractions that we have here at the beautiful Niagara Falls, the parkway that runs along the Niagara River. That's just kept beautifully by the good people at the Niagara Parks Commission. You can also, if you're into ghosts, if you're into hauntings, if you're into history, Kyle Upton at Ghosts of Fort George does a fantastic job. I've gone on a couple of the ghost walks with Kyle. It's rich with entertainment. It's rich with history, and you'll never know what you'll hear as you pass the barracks. For more information, all you need to do is just Google Ghosts of Fort George or Kyle Upton and tell him that Rob McConnell said to say hi. All right, I have to ask you this question, my dear friend, Seika Groves. Were any Victorian medicines surprisingly effective, or were most of them more dangerous than the illnesses they were supposed to treat?
Well, good question, actually. For the most part, most of them were worse than the conditions you were suffering. There was a lot of what we would call snake oil medicines in the 1800s. I mean, you know, it really depended on how and who you were looking to But the doctors of the time, it was still very early. People were still learning. People were still understanding the human body. They were still trying to figure out, what you could take that would help things. I think my best information on that, or my best thoughts on that, is that the women of, you know, villages and sort of, even in the cities, but those who were growing their own medicines, the natural medicines, the herbs, creating tinctures and teas, they were probably doing a better job of healing people than the doctors of the day. And it's an interesting conundrum because, again, doctors paid for a title, but they didn't necessarily have to have an education. And the education that they did have was a book bound education, and there wasn't a lot of practical application. So we see a lot of companies taking advantage of that during the Victorian era. I mean, obviously, things like cocaine were considered excellent medicines, mercury, even arsenic in small doses. And we know today that none of those things are particularly helpful to, actually treating conditions. They mask conditions, or they create conditions that are worse.
Your work examines women and Victorian asylums. How easily could a woman be institutionalized during that period?
Well, there you go.
There you go.
It was quite easy. It's shocking, actually, the extent and the number of women that were committed to asylums between the sort of late Georgian era and the mid-Edwardian era. Women could be put into asylums just on the word of their husband. And there was no out for a woman. We didn't get to speak. We didn't get to say that this was, not true, or it was just based on our, husband or father, or, some man in our life that decided that they were kind of done with us and didn't want to deal. And also things like, menopause, or even, PMS. Those symptoms were considered problematic. And so therefore women were put into asylums on a regular basis. And once in there, a lot of times they were not released.
I must tell you, I have never understood the mentality where women were always suppressed. That has made no sense to me. And at a time in history when men had to do that to try to prove their superiority, to me it shows their inferiority, that they could not see the values, the virtues of having women work side by side to make it a better world. When we look at history, you have, let me see here, let's just go into the British. The Queen, let's say Queen Elizabeth, she did a fantastic job. Queen Victoria, and you can go back in time. Women have always proven to be better leaders, more compassionate, more understanding, a hell of a lot more logical. So it never made sense to me. And then you've got the way women were suppressed in religion. Why?
Yeah, it's and unfortunately, we're going backwards in time again today. Yeah. And it's repeating itself. And as they say, if you don't pay attention, history will repeat itself. And it is repeating itself right now. But it's it's one of those things where it's really difficult to discuss openly. I do a lot of suffragette talks as well. They're not paranormal, they're not anything in that aspect, but I think sometimes, we need to understand how important it is to get out there and vote, how important it is. And one of the things that's really interesting that does tie into the paranormal is the rise of the New Age era through women in the Victorian period, because of their inability to speak out in society and their inability to, be seen. So they created these tea parties, these afternoon get-togethers, the evenings out, based on New Age philosophies and beliefs that looked at women as the goddess, the mother, the crone, and it was one of those things where suddenly women were able to get back some sort of power in their lives, which is why the New Age era became so popular and so well received by women.
Why did men catch on that it's Mother Earth, not Father Earth? It's Mother Earth for a very specific reason. And when you look at paganism, when you look at Wicca, the women are the caregivers. The women are the goddesses. And,
that goes throughout many different pantheons of belief systems as well, right? I mean, moving away from the Abrahamic religions and going into, the beliefs that often get spoken about as mythologies, but when you get into Greek or for a lack of better terms, Viking, you get into indigenous cultures, many matriarchal, nations that based, their lives around women being the first foremost center and leaders and offered guidance. And even in some of the archaeological digs that I've been on, going back to, the Iron Age, the Bronze Age, even Neanderthal, we see a lot of evidence that really gears towards women being in charge of those societies. And it's unusual that somewhere in and around 2,000 years ago we start to see a real difference and a movement towards a patriarchal society, and women start to be pushed to the peripheral. And again, as I say, many women continued underground movements and underground sought to seek higher power, higher knowledge, higher, just reaching out there into the universe for that information and that ability to be able to hold on to.
Well, if we look at what happens with the Epstein files and the way that women are being just ignored, to me, this is a travesty of justice. And for God's sake, if people can't see what's going on here, man, go to the optometrist, get your bloody eyes checked, because it's a travesty of justice.
It is, and there's so many again of those things that sort of repeat themselves in history, patterns that just keep coming to the surface. And if you kind of look at, like I say, for me, I mean, the archaeological side of things, the history side of things, there are patterns. There are, developmental patterns during certain eras that come and go. And we're in one of those patterns again. We're repeating what has already happened. And I think just because of the human condition and who we are and how we think, it will repeat itself again. We will leave this pattern, we will move into something else, and then we will come back. Maybe not in our lifetime, maybe not even in my children's lifetime. I mean, they're adults now, but it seems to almost repeat itself every 100 or 120 years.
Wow.
And that's something I've noticed just because of, my background in archaeology and in the history, that we're looking for patterns. We're looking for repetitive things that we can make connections with.
Seika, I hate to do this, but our time has just run out.
No worries.
Do me a favor. Come back and see us again. I love talking to you. It's always a great pleasure. And thank you for all you do when it comes to your archaeological work and the great work that you do in the paranormal. So thank you very much. And Exonation, if you'd like to find out more about Seika Groves, her website is halfpennydreadfuls.com. I'll be back on the other side of this break as the X-Zone continues with yours truly, Rob McConnell, from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada, on the CanCom Broadcast Network and on your hometown radio, Classic 1220 CFAJ AM, streaming us around the world at classic1220.ca.
Soldiers from their dream, they rise from the ground when the moon turns pale, whispering names on a cold night's gale. Through the streets of Niagara on the lake they ride, ghostly eyes burning from the other side. Hear their boots on the cobblestone